This is the Jack Murphy Podcast. Here's your host, Jack Murphy.
Well, hi, boys and girls, and welcome back to the Jack Murphy Podcast. Thanks for being with us. Subscribe if you haven't already. The show is available here on YouTube and Rumble and a million other places. So subscribe and like the video if you would, please. Now, today I want to get right to this. You know, President Trump has accomplished so many things during his term this time. I mean, ending wars all over the place, getting the big, beautiful bill passed, stopping immigration at the border. I mean, you could just go on and on, I think, all day long. But if he accomplishes this, I think this would be the greatest accomplishment of his presidency. And that is getting Jimmy Kimmel to leave the country. All right? We can all agree with that one, right? Jimmy Kimmel announced yesterday that he has secured an Italian passport. Now, I wonder why Jimmy Kimmel didn't get an Israeli passport. He is Jewish. Why not go to the homeland? Maybe help in the efforts against Hamas over there. No, he's going to go to Italy. Former comedian Jimmy Kimmel was a guest on Sarah Silverman's podcast, and the two of them discussed fleeing the country. Hey, if we could get a two-bagger, get Sarah and him on the same flight, that would be awesome. She said a lot of people that she knows, this is Sarah, says they're wondering where they can get citizenship. Well, I mean, if you're just worried about Trump, he's going to be gone in 3.5 years, so you don't really need citizenship. You could just get a visa somewhere. And then Jimmy said, I did get an Italian citizenship. I guess Italy's one of those places where, just like here, you can get a golden passport or golden citizenship where you deposit a certain amount of money, pay a certain amount of money, and you're guaranteed citizenship. I don't know. But what could be better than a steady economy, peace breaking out all over the world, evicting child rapists, drug dealers, and murderers, and getting Jimmy Kimmel to leave the country? That would be a great day and a slam dunk for President Trump. Now, this is a very disturbing, very sad piece of news that I have to bring you today. I mentioned earlier that one of the things that President Trump administration has been able to accomplish is they've arrested a lot of pedophiles, and they're going to be arresting a lot more. But they busted one yesterday that is just unbelievable. A physician at one of the nation's most respected pediatric institutions is facing federal charges for allegedly amassing one of the largest known personal collections of child abuse material in recent history. Edward M. Sael, 73, former geneticist and dysmorphiologist at Cincinnati's Children's Hospital. So, dysmorphia, of course, is the whole trans thing. So he was involved in that. But this is the way a lot of child molesters, a lot of people that collect this porn, this is the way they operate. You'll find them where the kids are. I mean, for them, that's where the action is. Oftentimes, I mean, I don't want to throw too big of a net here, but they're going to be where the children are. He's right at the Children's Hospital. How disturbing is that if you had a child that was treated at that hospital with this guy anywhere around? Listen to this. They discovered a trove of 153,000 images, 470 videos of child pornography, with some victims being as young as newborn. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm all for the death penalty in cases like this. But that's not going to happen in Ohio. Authorities claim that none of these photos are linked to the Children's Hospital. I bet they're saying that. He now faces federal charges that carry mandatory minimum sentencings as follows: 5 years and prison terms of 20 years for each count. So if we're lucky, this guy's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. And, people like him are not regarded very highly in prison, if you know what I mean.
Hi, I'm Hillary Clinton, and I'm a dandelion.
Yeah, I found her. She's right here.
So, we covered the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ad, the denim ad for Sydney Sweeney, several times on the podcast, the Jack Murphy podcast, and I just didn't see what all the hubbub was about. American Eagles trying to sell jeans to hot, young, white women, or just hot, young women, period. But a lot of people didn't like it because it was a pretty white girl in the jeans. And I said, well, if it were a pretty minority woman, you wouldn't have a problem with it. What they want is an obese, trans, or lesbian woman in the jeans. That's what would make them happy. And when you see the people that are protesting the loudest on social media about it, that's pretty much what they are. I mean, there'll be a reporter or one of these social media reporters or influencers, and where they hold a little microphone like this, and they'll walk up to a big woman who looks trans or lesbian. They'll walk up and go, "How do you feel about the Sydney Sweeney ad?" And they'll go, oh, don't get me started. It's misogynistic. It's eugenics at work. They're Nazis. That's what they are. And you see this over and over and over, and so you're left with the impression, wow, boy, American Eagle, they're really getting beat up over this thing. Well, as it turns out, that's not really true. According to a new survey, a YouGov poll, a mere 12% of Americans in general found the ad offensive. I have to say, if you found that ad offensive, you wouldn't have made it in the 60s and 70s, or 80s for that matter. But if you needed more evidence that perceived outrage disseminated on social media is not representative of real world attitudes, look no further than this study. It was conducted August 9th through the 11th. A pretty big poll, 1,635 adults. And what did they think about the ad? Did they think it was clever, offensive, neither, or unsure? And only 12% said they found it offensive. 40% answered neither. 8% said they were unsure, so that leaves a pretty good bundle that were fine with it. They thought it was clever. I thought it was clever. All right, a couple of political stories that we have to get to on the Jack Murphy podcast here today. Most of you have heard in the past few weeks the term gerrymandering a lot, gerrymandering. And that's where states redraw the voting lines to give a favorable outcome to one political party or the other. For instance, I'll just as an example use North Carolina, where I live, as an example. Charlotte, Raleigh, and Greensboro, the city, the urban area, tend to vote more Democrat than Republican, whereas the rural areas always vote more Republican. So what they do, they redraw lines if they can to grab more of, like if it's a Republican and it's a rural district, they'll try to twist that line to bring in some of Charlotte or Raleigh or Durham or Greensboro or Winston-Salem or Wilmington, where they know there's more Democrats, and give them a chance to unseat that Republican. Now, when they started doing this in Texas, Gavin Newsom went nuts. He said, we're gonna change ours too in California. There was even a member of the Massachusetts Senate who got up and held a press. See, they'll get in front of the camera, and the reporters are too brain dead to ask any questions. In Massachusetts, they said, we're going to redraw ours too, so we become even more Democratic. What they didn't tell you, by the way, is that in Massachusetts, there are no Republican members of their Senate, state Senate, or House. None. Not a one. Here are the facts. In Massachusetts, you have 36% of the population that identifies or is registered as Republican. How many seats in the Congress do you think they have that are Republican? 0. Connecticut, 42% identifies Republican, 0 seats. Maine, 46% Republican, 0 seats. New Hampshire, you get the idea, 48% Republican, 0 seats. Rhode Island, 42% Republican, 0 seats. Vermont, 32% Republican, 0 seats. Hawaii, 38% Republican, 0 seats. Delaware, 42% Republican, 0 seats. Yeah, it already happened, the gerrymandering, in all those states. So Texas and some of these other states are simply trying to level the playing field for Republicans.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Now, everybody's gone crazy. We talked a little about this yesterday, about Trump bringing the National Guard into D.C. And gosh, I've heard every bad thing you could possibly hear about him doing that in the last couple of days from every Democrat who could get in front of a camera. But MSNBC's Joe Scarborough said Tuesday on Morning Joe that many Democrats secretly support President Trump's takeover of the police force. He said it's a fascinating story because many Democrats have called me saying, you know, Washington should have gotten involved years ago. This place is a mess. It's a wreck, a hellhole. And then they'll go on Twitter and say, it's his worst outrage of all time, which I understand. He said, we saw what happened back in 2020 with the National Guard. We can't have a repeat of that. The problem is, and this is going to come out later, is that this DEI hire, police chief, who didn't even know what a chain of command was, they've been playing with the numbers to make it look like they're having a real effect on crime, when in fact, they aren't having an effect on crime. One of the big problems they have in Washington, D.C., and just about every major city, we have it here in Charlotte. The police department here in Charlotte routinely, before a big event that the city's going to have downtown or on a holiday, they routinely, and this is on the news here all the time, they routinely go to the homes of problem children to talk with them and their parents about what will happen if they get caught again out doing the things they've done in the past at this event or during the holiday. So you have a few hundred hoodlums whose parents, they don't care. The parents ought to be put in jail. They allow the kids to go out at night. They have no idea where they are, what they're doing, and they're out doing these meetups in cars or on four-wheelers, or they're breaking into stuff, or they're assaulting people, they're robbing people, and the parents just, my child would never do that. Right. So the police know who a lot of these people are, and they go house to house. What you have is an education and a parent problem in a lot of these cities. I know you have it in Washington, D.C., and you have it in just about every major city in America. But it's funny, a lot of Democrats agree with Trump. They just won't come out and say it. In fact, they'll agree with him in private, and then they'll come out and bash him in public because they have no spine, because they have no morals. Well, Russiagate rolls right along. Don't you know there are some nervous folks at the Clintons and the Obamas and the Brennans and the Clappers' house and at Adam Schiff's house. Adam Schiff is getting it on two fronts now, mortgage fraud and the Russia collusion story. I mean, Adam Schiff just got up and lied at congressional hearings over and over that he said to the media repeatedly, we have incontrovertible evidence that the president was involved. He had nothing. He was making it up. If he had any evidence, we would have seen it. But there is no evidence because it didn't happen. Hillary Clinton dreamed it up. Obama put it into motion and supported it. And Schiff promoted it. Now, it turns out that they have some written proof, and they have a whistleblower. I love the whistleblower. He says that Schiff orchestrated anti-Trump leaks to push the false Trump-Russia collusion narrative. And by the way, he also says that Schiff was having an affair with a man who was a Russian operative named Igor. I can only hope there's hidden camera footage of that somewhere. The pencil neck geek with a Russian operative named Igor. You come here, you Adam Schiff. Schiff claimed they claim that Schiff authorized leaks of classified material to smear President Trump. Now, there's a theory, shifting gears here, there's a conspiracy theorist on X who posted this yesterday, and I don't know. People do this. I talk about it all the time on this podcast. People do this on social media all the time. They'll give you just a tiny bit of information, not even information. They'll give you a tiny hint about a conspiracy, but they don't even say what the conspiracy is. And it just gets your curiosity. I think it's a technique to get clicks, but it gets your curiosity up. This person on X put the Smithsonian museums and their tunnel network are right between the White House and the Capitol building, Supreme Court, and Library of Congress. Trump decided to conduct a review of the Smithsonian operation the day after he took federal control of D.C. and deployed the NG, National Guard. Call me a conspiracy theorist all you want, but there's way too much smoke here for there not to be any fire. What's he talking about? I mean, I didn't know there were tunnels between the Smithsonian and the White House and all those other buildings, but I think Trump wanted to see, and they discovered that one of the accusations is that the Smithsonian had a lot of false income. In other words, they had reported income that actually wasn't there to make their budget look better than it actually was. I mean, I don't know, but it gets me curious, doesn't it? You? So when I was a kid, probably when you were, depending on how old you were, we had to jump through hoops to take a picture, boys and girls. I mean, we used 35 millimeter cameras, if you had them, that had actual film in them. And you had to know, there was no autofocus. There was no auto settings. You had to know how to set that aperture and the speed of the shutter and all that stuff. Consequently, most of my pictures I took in high school and after were terrible. I took a photography class. Mr. Owens taught it at Cedartown High School. And I had a 35 millimeter camera, and we would develop our own film, and it was awful. You come out of there, your hands stinking like vinegar or whatever those chemicals were, and the pictures were terrible. The only good pictures we got were made with a Polaroid. I mean, that was, man, if you had a Polaroid, you were the top dog of photography where I lived. The other thing you had to deal with was the Kodak camera. Now, the Kodak camera came encapsulated. So you would buy one that was, say, a 24-picture camera. So the film was in there. The film was already in there, 24-roll film. And there were either already on there or you had to put flash cubes on the camera. So you'd buy a package of these cubes and you would insert it, be a flash, and then you would take the entire camera, the entire thing, to the drugstore and give it to them. And they would say, oh, you come, bring it in on Tuesday. They'd say, come back in a week from Saturday. We'll have those 24 pictures ready for you. And it didn't matter what the pictures were of. Somebody else had seen them before you had. The guy who developed them, either in a machine or by hand, he'd already seen them. And they hand you the big envelope full of pictures with your negatives. I mean, who wants that? And if they were, questionable pictures, he's making copies and passing them off to his friend. But there was only pretty much one game back then, and it was Kodak. I mean, they had the market locked up. They did all the film. They made all the film, no matter what you were shooting. Movies, 35 millimeter, it didn't matter. They made the film and you bought it. The cameras, they had the middle-class camera market locked up with the flash bulbs and these little cameras. They had it locked up. But today, when we look back, Kodak, who was in business for 133 years, are they possibly the greatest corporate screw-up of all time? I mean, they had a lock on the entire picture-making deal. And long before Apple came along with that may have killed them anyway. But somebody at Kodak, the CEO, passed pretty much on digital photography. Just passed on it because he couldn't see the future. He couldn't give up all they had for this new technology. And then over the years, they doubled down on it. And now Kodak is eyeing bankruptcy after 133 years in business. Sad. This is pretty interesting if you like music as much as I did. It's a list of songs. You know, a lot of times what happens with songs, and most of you know this, is there are people who write songs, like Shooter Jennings, for instance, but they write songs and they have people who go shop those songs to various artists. It happens in the rock world, the country world, the pop world, etc. So they'll take demos to artists that they think would like these songs or would sound good singing them, and the artist will put holes on those songs, meaning I'm going to pay you a certain amount of money just to hold the song. Don't sell it to don't offer it to anybody else, and I'll let you know within a certain amount of time whether or not I'm going to use it or not. If I don't, then you can go do whatever you want with it. So a lot of the songs that we hear, the artist didn't write. Somebody else wrote it. They're better singers. They're better performers. They're better looking. People Glenn Campbell wrote some hit songs, but most of Glenn Campbell's big hits, he didn't write. He was just a great guitarist, a great singer, great performer, good-looking guy. So songwriters were bringing him songs all the time. But the person for whom the song was intended by the writer, they didn't always pick it up. Sometimes somebody else would take that song and make a hit record out of it. I have a few examples for you today. For instance, the iconic Take Me Home Country Roads by Mr. John Denver. Originally, Johnny Cash was supposed to record it. Unbelievable. That would have had a whole different vibe to it. Here's some more. Drink a Beer by Luke Bryan was written by Chris Stapleton. It was originally pitched to Dierks Bentley, but he passed. Big Green Tractor by Jason Aldean was first pitched to Jake Owen. Chicken Fried by Zac Brown Band was pitched to Alan Jackson. He was planning on recording it, but he had just cut another song called Where I Come From that mentioned fried chicken, and he didn't think it was a good idea. How about this one? The House That Built Me by Miranda Lambert. Now, that was supposed to be recorded by her then husband, Blake Shelton, but Blake, being the good guy that he is, he saw how much Miranda connected to the song, and he gave it to her. And how did that whore pay him back? By cheating on him. And they got divorced. Let that be a lesson to all of you. Thank you for being part of the Jack Murphy podcast today. Subscribe, tell a friend, like this video, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for watching the Jack Murphy Podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Go ahead, ring it. Get alerts when a new episode drops, and tell your friends about the Jack Murphy Podcast. But only the cool friends, please. Tune in next time for another episode of the Jack Murphy Podcast.